Penguicon 2016, the most fun you're going to have in Michigan. Penguicon, never heard of it? Well, check out my video from last year. Penguicon 2015 was the first time that I had ever been to Penguicon, and typically it's about 1,500 to 2,000 people, so it's kind of large, but still small enough to be pretty intimate. And the great thing about Penguicon is that there are all different types of nerds and geeks that are going to Penguicon that are geeks and nerds in various different areas, in various different fields. A lot of the people that go there are very, very accomplished individuals in terms of what their hobbies are, or in terms of their profession, or in terms of both. And some of the other people that go there are people that are genuinely interested in that subject matter. Pretty much what's true of everybody that I've met at Penguicon is that they pour a lot of love into whatever it is that they do. And so they're very excited by whatever it is that they do, and they're very excited by the things that they're interested in. So you always meet genuinely interesting people, and people that are very interested in whatever it is that they're doing, and so that enthusiasm can be infectious. Now, if you show up early to Penguicon, you can go to something called Geeks with Guns. Now, Geeks with Guns is at the Action Impact Gun Range, which is just a few miles from the convention center where Penguicon is held. So it turns out some of the people that go to Penguicon are also gun enthusiasts, and some of the people like to shoot guns, some of the people like to restore guns, some of the people like to let other people shoot their guns, and so it's usually a pretty intimate group, 20, 30 people, something like that, will go to the gun range and get a safety briefing and a safety demonstration. So maybe somebody's interested in learning to shoot, well, they'll come to the event and actually, pair up with somebody who's more experienced and actually learn to shoot at the Geeks with Guns event that happens a little before Penguicon. It's really pretty awesome. This is our gracious host, John Bell.
I'm John Bell. I'm the organizer for Geeks with Guns at Penguicon. Come join us for 2017.
This event really was a blast, both literally and figuratively. A lot of people had a lot of fun. A lot of people learned how to shoot for the first time. It was an open and welcoming event, and everybody got to go home, at least with a target that had at least a few holes in it. But let me tell you, there were some amazing marksmen there. It's like they could hit the target at the, dead center every time from farthest away, and, very small weapons. And I don't know, it's just, I'm not really too much of a gun nut myself, but I can definitely appreciate the enthusiasm and the skill that these guys show. I mean, everybody is really passionate about everything, and that passion really is infectious, and that's a recurring theme through all of Penguicon. And so there are so many cool projects at Penguicon. Check this out, for example. This is the 1967 Avenger GT. This is a DIY electric vehicle conversion. This car was sold as a mail-order kit, which was kind of popular in the 60s and 70s. Some assembly required, of course. And so even though this was a mail-order kit, it was never really fully assembled until the DIY electric conversion happened, basically. This one has been modded, of course, with loads of batteries and an electric motor, and it looks pretty snappy as well. It has a top speed of 90 miles an hour, weighs 1,500 pounds, and can go from 0 to 50 in 10 seconds. The power plant here is an electric HPEV AC31 brushless 3-phase motor. That's 70 horsepower with 130 foot-pounds of torque. And you can learn more about it at the Avenger-EV.com. So some of the other cool things about Penguicon are the panels. So if you haven't been to a convention like this before, a panel is typically a 1 to 2 hour talk on various topics. So I went to many panels this year and had a blast. It's usually set up in a room like this. There's a projector or a screen or something in the front, and the presenter comes in and talks about a project, or talks about a particular open source thing they were working on, or talks about whatever, and it's sort of set up in this kind of a format. And those panels are running in parallel pretty much the whole time during the event, 12, 16 hours a day. So there's a lot of material, a lot of technical material, or a lot of hands-on material, or a lot of DIY material, depending on what you're interested in. If you're interested in the particular subject matter, you can check out the Penguicon website and check out their schedule and just browse through all the stuff that they had in 2016, because there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm not talking about, but that is other interesting stuff. For me personally, the panels that I went to were all really interesting, but there were two in my mind that stood out. One was the ZFS panel, and the other one was the Lucida panel. Now, the ZFS panel really didn't tell me a lot of things that I didn't already know, but it was nice to have validation. And during the ZFS panel, the audience was definitely gung-ho to participate, because there were a lot of, old grizzled ZFS admins, and they all wanted to weigh in with their own 2 cents on what's happening with ZFS and how you arrange your disk pools and which things are best for performance. I learned that 2N+1 or 2N+2 for RAID Z2 or 2N+3 for RAID Z3, not actually a thing in the real world from admins that are running thousands and thousands of spindles in their ZFS pools. So, in the source code, technically that's true, but for a real world use case, not actually true. Gaming, of course, is also a big part of Penguicon. Not just game developers, but game rooms as well, and not just electronic video games, but also real-world games. Here's the retro gaming room. Now, of course, we've got the NES with the Commodore 64 CRT and all of its CRT cathode ray goodness. But of course, we've also got the Dreamcast and other legacy systems. Now, the setup of this room changed a little bit as people sort of cycled through the room with different conventions. Some people would come in and be like, hey, check out my retro system. And so they would set up in a corner. And then when they were done, they would pack up and go. And so this room sort of changed throughout the convention a little bit, depending on what kind of hardware was available and what people had brought in. So it was always really interesting every time I poked my head in there. And here was one of my other favorite places to hang out. This is the Artemis Starship Bridge Simulator, which was set up by the Lansing Makers Group. Now, they went above and beyond by providing LCARS-style touch interfaces powered by Arduino. So check it out here. We've got the Arduino with the touch interface, and so you can just touch the Starship controls with the screen and have sort of a simulated bridge experience. Now, in addition to providing the touch interfaces powered by Arduinos, they've also have RGB LED lighting control. So when the ship is attacked, or when we're on red alert, or when the scanners are just scanning for, looking for things within sensor range or communications range or whatever, we've got all this ambient LED lighting that changes depending on what's going on in the game. Now, of course, the captain is in the middle, and he's surrounded by science, communications, navigation, weapons, engineering, the whole 9 yards. These are all the bridge stations you would expect if you were on the Starship Enterprise. We took a look at this a little bit last year, but they've sort of upped their ante, and this setup is a lot more elaborate. This gives me some ideas for the next Land Syndicate, I think. There's also this freebie table, check this out, where if you show up early enough, there are things on this table like motherboards and processors and RAM. It's all older kit, typically. Now, I showed up late, and the only thing left on here were these free flyers and this box of bran flakes. Now, in addition to the panels, you've also got this DIY sort of maker thing where you can go and do soldering, and you can go and build things, and you can go and meet other people who build things. BeagleBone, the makers of the BeagleBone single board computer, are also one of Penguicon's sponsors, and so there were a lot of projects here involving the BeagleBone single board computer. But even beyond that, you could also solder your own name tag, and so I elected to do that, which was interesting because I had to use another person's soldering iron. Very challenging. Also surface mount components, but ended up with a Wi-Fi powered name tag with LEDs. It's got its own lithium polymer, lithium ion battery pack in the charger and FTDI interface, completely programmable, and also with a Wi-Fi interface, because sure, why not? I mean, seems like you need that, right? Makes sense. I also got to take a look at how to build this Space Invader synthesizer with David Eric Nelson, the author of Junkyard Jam Band. There was so much here for makers, DIYers, DIY screen printing. Even if you want to make your own t-shirts and you're into that kind of thing, well, you have the option to do that here. There were also a series of panels on food-related items, food geekery and that kind of thing, including this really awesome liquid nitrogen ice cream setup. So yeah, you want to make some ice cream with liquid nitrogen? We can totally do that. Oh, that makes sense. Let's totally do that. So liquid nitrogen ice cream, turns out, is delicious. Well, if that's not your thing, what about a life-size game of Tetris? Or even Operation? Yes, this is a fully operational life-size game of Operation. Now, everywhere you turn, there was something nerdy and quirky. The costume contest, the after-hours dance party, and even the posters everywhere. Everywhere you looked, there was a slightly off-center sense of humor. And this is very comforting because I think my sense of humor is slightly off-center, and to see so much reinforcement of that off-center sense of humor is comforting somehow. I don't know, I can't explain it, but I just felt at home. And for some of the things that you may have seen the poster for, like Barfleet and the Star Trek karaoke, well, I don't have any footage of that because not everybody was comfortable with footage of that, but you'll just have to take my word for it that it was just loads and loads of fun. It really was amazing to meet all of the nerds. I mean, PhD level nerds and engineers, people that have been engineers for 20 or 30 years, talking about their trade and their craft and problems that they've solved through their experiences. And getting a brain dump from all of that is exhausting and overwhelming and amazing, but I really had a lot of fun doing it. Now, one other panel I'd like to plug is the Sirirus Lucida panel, which I had a chance to sit in on, and it was great. If you're not familiar with Sirirus, Sirirus is the name of the open source personal assistant. They're going through a name change because Sirius was a little bit too close to Siri, sort of kind of. They're voluntarily changing it just to avoid the potential of problems with Apple, and they're going to call it Lucida. Now, Lucida is a fully open source AI assistant from Clarity Lab and the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Jason Mars and Lijiang Tang, I don't think I pronounced her name right, but hopefully I got close enough. Gave an amazing presentation. And if you're into open source personal assistants, you really should check out their work at claritylab.org. After attending the presentations from these researchers, I am more excited about this open source personal assistant than any other open source personal assistant that exists out there. Now, truth be told, Lucida is actually a collection of things for doing natural language query, text to speech, and it's kind of modular. They're working on it to make the whole thing basically completely modular, so that you're able to use whatever speech recognition system you want, and whatever kind of query engine you want, and whatever kind of image recognition algorithm that you want. And right now there are enough pieces that you can get sort of a fully functional, an entire stack. You can download a pre-trained neural network for speech recognition. That's actually really good. You can also download a copy of Wikipedia that is in a format such that it is structured for natural language query. Now, this gets a little bit more into the AI side of things, but there's been a lot of work on their GitHub lately. I mean, under Sirirus a few months ago, I was looking at this like 6 or 8 months ago, and I was like, I'm not really seeing a lot of development. I don't understand. There's a lot of excitement. But after seeing the presentations and seeing the enthusiasm the people at the head of the project have for the work that they're doing, I'm really excited by this project. I'm really excited by the potential for this project in the future, more so than any other open source AI project or proposed AI, open source AI assistant out there. This thing looks like it's really got all the pieces. In fact, I immediately went and downloaded everything and started setting things up and doing things and integrating some of my own stuff and integrating my own wiki as kind of a knowledge source for this thing. And I'm already up to about 50, 60 gigabytes of data in this thing, and it's running really well. I'm gonna have to put more RAM in one of my machines. 64 gigabytes of RAM is not enough. I want everything to run from RAM. It's not fast enough. But that's a story for another time, and that's about it for Penguicon 2016. I had a blast, and I really hope you're enjoying the B-roll on the screen that otherwise maybe didn't get a mention. I'm Wendell, I had a blast, and I'll see you in the forums.